What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, and welcome to a very special video. I've wanted to do this a lot sooner than what we are doing today, but I think it's time. I think it's time we finally sit down and go through a mock draft for the NFL. We've done a lot with the NBA leading up. Right now as I'm recording this, it's 11:30 on Wednesday the 11th, a week away from the NBA side. We're a while away from the NBA mock draft. Usually I like to do one around mid-season, before mid-season, then at mid-season, and then around where the playoffs start. But we're past mid-season. We're about, 9 weeks that we have completed in the NFL season. So why not take a look at where these prospects could go? What these teams in the NFL might already be thinking. Do we have a for sure number one pick? Before I get into everything, though, if you love what you see here, check out patreon.com/MVPvid. Support us so that we can keep making these videos for you. But before we dive in, a little bit of ground rules here. So how I am doing this is I've never done a mock draft like this. we're going to go through together all 32 picks in the first round. For this one, maybe the second one I do the same thing, but at least until the draft order is set, there's going to be no trades in this draft class. This is just going to be kind of our first bulletin board of like, okay, this is our starting point of where these prospects could be. What are these teams kind of looking at? And I'm not just going to be talking to you guys. You guys are going to be able to see the draft because I'm going to do it alongside my browser, the Draft Network. These guys are great. Not sponsored, but they have a nice little website and they have it to where you can kind of mock your own draft. So we're going to do this together as a team. Well, I'm going to do it and you guys are basically going to judge me because I either made the right call or I made the wrong call for your given team. So without further ado, let's just get into this. Let's see what we're dealing with. And the first overall pick, it's the New York Jets. Do I have to explain here? Like, let's just boom, Trevor Lawrence, he is the pick, and there's no explanation here. The Jets need a quarterback. Trevor Lawrence is the number one prospect. Even if Trevor Lawrence does go back, Dave, cover your ears. Even if he does go back to college, just move Justin Fields right up. This team needs a quarterback. Sam Darnold is good, but hey, maybe his ship has sailed in New York, especially if Trevor Lawrence is on the board. Jets are taking Lawrence, no questions asked. Then you got Jacksonville at number 2, and this is an interesting one because, of who's available. Like, is Gardner Minshew the future? I'm going to give you the spoiler alert, the short version. No, he's not. I like Gardner. I like Minshew. He ain't the future. If they're thinking about benching you mid-season or around mid-season, you're not the future. That means they're thinking about moving on from you. So for me, this is the pick of Justin Fields goes number 2 to the Jaguars or the Jaguars. Mainly because of that. If Minshew, if they don't think he's the guy, go ahead and move on from him. Otherwise, you could see a Penny Sewell being a pick here because the Jaguars need offensive line help as well. But you know what? If you don't think you got the quarterback at the future, go ahead and get him at number 2, especially if he's there. Then this is where we start getting into interesting territory because the rest of the picks are not quarterback based. And I know if Fields was there for the Cowboys, we would have definitely a discussion to be had. But there's one thing the Cowboys need, and that is defense. Their defense is often hurt. Their defense has been bad this year. I know the last 2 games, the whole team is kind of played up. So, good for Cowboys. You almost beat 2 teams that we didn't expect you to. But at the same time, they need defense. And for me, I'm taking the BPA on defense. And for me, that's Micah Parsons. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. This one's like 1, 2, and 3 have been easy so far. Jets take the BPA player. Jaguars, if you don't think you got the guy, take the guy. And then the Cowboys go ahead and take the BPA defensive player. Giants will be sitting here at 4, and basically what they're thinking is, damn, we didn't get Micah Parsons. And that's because they used to be the number 2 pick Now, because of how things have shaken up, they've already moved down to number 4. And I don't think anything changes here for the Giants. Yes, Micah Parsons would have been the pick if they were 2. They still get a great defensive player here at 4. And some people may even say that the Giants need an edge rusher more than just BPA defensive player. And I know for Micah Parsons, it would have been their second need. So it's kind of like, okay, what would you rather have? A really good inside-outside linebacker who can play both, or an edge rusher? And because Parsons is already off the board, Gregory Rousseau, come on up from Miami. You're the newest member of the New York Giants for this first mock draft. So, I mean, the Giants really don't lose out on a pick. They get an edge rusher. They get someone to help their defense, and they get to kind of move forward. And now we get to my first pick where it was like, okay, this one actually needs some thinking to it, because if you look there, the top need for Washington is a quarterback. They could take Trey Lance here. This is the first Trey Lance sighting in my mind. But for me, it's one of those things with what I've seen from Trey Lance, I like. Now, that may change as I dive more into film and we kind of nitpick these guys in their final season, but I feel like Trey Lance could be a good quarterback prospect. However, they still have Dwayne Haskins. So, I mean, is it necessarily smart to go back to that quarterback? Well, it's like Mark Weber used to say on this channel, of if you're always at the top of the draft drafting quarterbacks, guess where you're always going to be? At the top of the draft drafting quarterbacks. So, like, for me, I stayed away from quarterback. I was like, we're not going to touch Trey Lance here. And then it became the actual debate. Well, do you go with Penny Sewell, who will help defend or help protect your quarterback? Or do you go with Jamar Chase, who gives this team a weapon? And for me, like, I went back and forth, like, because Penny Sewell to me is the higher prospect on my big board. But I think wide receiver, in my opinion, is a bigger need. This team, and I've been saying it for a while, Washington needs a number 1 threat at wide receiver. Jamar Chase could be that guy. So, like, for me, I lock in Chase with the 5th overall pick because, like I said, Washington needs a number 1 guy. You can give Haskins, I think you can give Haskins one more year. This is it. Make or break. If you don't even make it through this season, you're done. Because Ron Rivera didn't draft him. This is Ron Rivera's first season with him. Next year can be the make or break, and then you can look forward into quarterback. And then it's like, yeah, passing on Sewell is not great, but as I look later in the draft, there's more depth at offensive tackle than there is at wide receiver. So that's why in my mind, I'm going to take the best wide receiver rather than the best offensive tackle. Then the Chargers, they said, well, did you say offensive tackle? Because that's what we really need. And the Chargers have their quarterback of the future. Justin Herbert is the future. They have weapons for him. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. They've got Austin Eckler, I think, free agent in this offseason. We're going to see what kind of happens there. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Don't have that information right in front of me. I want to say he's a free agent, though. This offseason, they need to protect Justin Herbert. The Herbert needs to be protected. And that's why, for me, if I'm the Chargers, Penny Sewell falls right into your lap. Like, that is a pick I say on all the mock drafts. I have a famous saying, if you're new, Chargers are running that pick up to the podium. They can't get there quick enough to say, here you go, Mr. Goodell. Here's our selection for the first round of the draft. And, you know, if COVID's still going around, they're not going to literally run it up there. But, hey, who knows? Maybe all this is done by the next time we get to the 2021 NFL draft. Then we move on. Number 7. One of 2 selections for the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins have one question to answer here. They have 2 needs that I think they take in the first round. The first one is offensive line help, whether that's guard, whether that's tackle. You got to protect Tua Tagovailoa. The second need is go for a wide receiver. You got to go ahead and give him someone to throw to. Now, the thing that we don't know right now, we're going to have to wait until free agency happens, is do they add a weapon for him in free agency? Because if the Dolphins add a Allen Robinson, per se, this offseason, well, that changes things. Okay, maybe we don't need to go wide receiver in the first round. We can maybe hit the linebacker. We can hit double offensive line, go inside, outside with the tackle and guard. Maybe we do take an edge later on and take a like what they do in free agency, them being the Dolphins, will determine what they do in this draft. But right now, with what we're presented, no free agent signings, what we know of like who's on the roster, the two positions I'm targeting for the Dolphins in the first round are tackle and wide receiver. And for me, it comes down to two guys here where I'm looking at it and I'm going, I either go with my personal offensive tackle that I have number one for offensive lineman right now, because Sewell's off the board. So who's the next up? Alex Leatherwood. So it's either Alex Leatherwood or you're going ahead and you're taking Jalen Waddle. And usually I would have Waddle be the pick here. However, the injury that he sustained, how are teams going to look at that? And how is that going to progress? Now, by the combine, when we get those physicals, when we get those interviews, maybe this is a no question thing. And you're saying, Ricky, you were dumb to even question it during the 1.0 mock draft. For right now, though, we don't have those answers. So for me, I'm saying with my later pick, which the Dolphins have at 21, I'm going to shoot for my wide receiver there. Smith could be, like, even if I don't get Waddle, Smith could be there, Bateman can be there, Moore can be there. I'm going to have a wide receiver there. There might not be another offensive tackle by the time I get to 21. So for me, I'm going to go ahead with the Dolphins and lock in Alex Leatherwood. I'm going to get my guy to help protect Tua Tagovailoa. And the Bengals have a similar kind of need here, is they've got a young quarterback. Like the Dolphins, the Chargers, and the Bengals, all of the same thing. Young quarterback, they need to protect him. It's simple, especially in Joe Burrow. He is getting absolutely murdered out there, to where there are clips of him telling referees, I got to stop running. Like, I got to give up my body sooner because I don't want to keep taking these hits. And he's only a rookie saying that. I mean, this offensive line is not good for Cincinnati. So for me, it's kind of like next man up. All right, you took Leatherwood. The Chargers got Sewell. We're going to go with Samuel Cosme out of Texas. Like, this is just simple. Young quarterback, you need to protect him. Tackle, tackle, tackle. Going with picks 6, 7, and 8 for these teams with young quarterbacks. Then we come to number 9, the Carolina Panthers. And with the Panthers, this one's kind of like, this one's one where we could see Kyle Pitts for the first time. Like, this is one where it's like, okay, tight end could be in play here because Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, good targets for Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy Two Gloves. But having a target at the tight end position could help this team. However, I don't do that. I'm not diving into the tight end well if I'm Carolina this soon. And it's also going to depend how Kyle Pitts' stock goes. Right now it's rising. This could be one to where it's like, hey, if his stock's up there and someone really wants him, let's get some extra draft capital in this draft, move back a little bit, because this is a team that needs defensive help. They need linebacker. They need cornerback. They could go with a Patrick Surtain here, which is the number 1 cornerback that I have available on the board. Or they can go ahead and go with like a Dylan Moses at this time. And I know offensive tackle, you guys see it right there. I'm staring right at it. Offensive tackle is also a need for this team, but based on what I saw, tackle, go before this pick, I'm reaching if I'm going for an offensive tackle right now. So if I'm the Panthers, I'm sitting here and I'm going, you know what? Dylan Moses might be a little bit of a reach at 9. Pitts could be in play. Tight end is a top 5 need technically, but I'm going to go with the cornerback help. I'm going to take the best corner on the board and basically get BPA here. I'm going to get BPA. I'm going to hit a need of mine. We're going to help our defense. Surtain could be a guy that fills a gap that basically was left when Josh Norman left. Hopefully he can then anchor this crew and grow into your number 1 corner. Knock on wood, except my desk isn't wood, so that didn't really help much. And then that brings us to the Atlanta Falcons. And you might notice a jump cut here. That's because I fucked up. So yeah, I had to do a jump cut. And right here is the second Trey Lance sighting. This is the second team that is in our top 10 that I could see Trey Lance going to. And it's one of those where Matt Ryan is on the block. Do I see him getting traded this offseason? No, I don't see any team going out there being like, oh my God, I need to give up assets to go ahead and get Matt Ryan. I just don't see it happening. And I don't see the Falcons cutting him before the potential out in his contract comes, which I think is in a year or two. With that being said, there are other needs on this team. And I mean, I know, like I said, it depends on this one, how much Kwity Paye, how much his stock rises. As you can see here, the Draft Network, they're really high on him. I think right now he's kind of like at the top tier. He's sitting mid first round for me right now, if I'm going big board wise. So, I mean, there's a possibility he could be taken if he continues playing well this season and his stock rises, combine, everything like that. But for me, I'm pulling the trigger on Trey Lance. Like, that is what I am doing if I am the Atlanta Falcons. And the reason why I am doing this is Atlanta has a good team. Todd Gurley, if they re-sign him, is good. They have Julio Jones. They have Calvin Ridley. Gage has been good for them. They have a good team. If they can get a quarterback in there, add pieces this offseason, add pieces next draft and next offseason, this doesn't have to be a long rebuild for the Atlanta Falcons. They have a team in place. And Trey Lance, I could see them doing what the Dolphins did with Tua Tagovailoa. They can go ahead and say, hey, Matt Ryan's going to start this year, and then kind of play it by ear. If it's one of those where it's like, hey, you know what? It's better for us to throw the young rook in there, throw Trey Lance in there. If Trey Lance sits his entire year and then has to basically sit behind Matt Ryan, that's not a bad thing either. So, like, if I'm the Falcons, take a shot on Trey Lance, because this could be something that really works out for you, and you don't have to have the pressure of having him start right away if you still have Matt Ryan on this team. However, what is Matt Ryan going to be like? Because he basically becomes Ryan Fitzpatrick. Once you draft Trey Lance, you are telling Matt Ryan he is no longer the future. You are eventually moving on from him, and that basically that clock is ticking until he's going to lose his job. But if I'm the Falcons, I go ahead and do it. It's a no-brainer. That brings up the Lions, and the Lions, for me, it's two choices here. It's either Marvin Wilson, the interior defensive lineman from the Florida State Seminoles, or you're going with a wide receiver. And the one thing with the Lions, and why I'm just going to do this and click Jalen Waddle there, is this team has, how many? 5 wide receivers who are going to be UFAs this offseason. Are they going to re-sign all 5 of those guys? Probably not. This is a team that, yet again, you need, yes, Galladay has been good. Yes, you've got Marvin Jones Jr., who's been good. But you need to get a little bit younger at the wide receiver position. Like, Danny Amendola is not the answer. So, Jalen Waddle could be someone you draft, depending on the injury. We'll see rookie year what he's like. Hell, let's even see what he's like at the combine. But, I mean, he could be someone that develops into your number 1 deep threat target. Yes, Matthew Stafford ain't going to be here forever. He's closer to the end of his career than he is to the beginning of his career. But with a Jalen Waddle, you can kind of say, hey, Matt, we're still trying to help you win. We are still trying to give you weapons so that you can use your talents, and we can maybe win some games, maybe even make the playoffs. All you got to do is make the playoffs. And then you see where it goes from there. But the Lions wide receiver is basically what I'm looking at, and this is a no-brainer pick for them at 11. Then the Vikings come along, and before the Monday night game, this pick was clear for me. Wyatt Davis, the interior lineman from the Ohio State Buckeyes. However, then the Patriots won, and their pick went back. Their pick was long gone. It basically they were up where I think the Panthers were. They were pick 9. They win that game. Now they're at pick 13. And one thing the Vikings need is they need defensive line help. they need defensive line help, especially on the inside of that line. So, like, for me, I go ahead and I'm going to go down. Wyatt Davis is there. That's who I'm kind of thinking of beforehand. But now that you've got Wilson there, and I'm going to see I'm just going to do the find a player. Yeah, just because now Wilson's there, boom, I go ahead and make that pick. I get my interior defensive lineman. And this team, if Trey Lance was there, this would have been another one where maybe you draft Trey Lance, because I'm done with Kirk Cousins. If you don't know, I am a Vikings fan. So I'm done with Kirk Cousins, but like, we still have him under contract. Yes, adding depth at the offensive line would be good, but this defense needs to get back to what we know it is. Mike Zimmer knows defenses. Wilson would be a good guy to put back in there into that defensive line, hoping he can be one of the players, the numerous players that we used to have, and maybe bring some life to our defense, because when our defense is strong, that takes pressure off of the offense. And the Patriots at 13, they're sitting here going, well, damn, that's who we were going to take. We were going to go ahead and take our biggest need, interior defensive lineman, but now we're kind of stuck here. What do we do? And this is one where I didn't have this player up this high, but based on this team, the Patriots, winning and now being at 13, I could go ahead and you take Kyle Pitts. And the reason why I do this at 13, if you take an interior lineman right now, you take Christian Barmore from Alabama, that's seen as a reach at 13. You can wide receiver, they have like their top 3 wide receivers, they still have under contract. So it's like, yes, you can go with a Devonta Smith, but really, where does he fit in with N'Keal Harry? Where does he fit in with Julian Edelman? Where does he fit in with your other wide receivers that you have under contract? You haven't had a pass-catching tight end since Gronk left. That could be useful for you, depending on who your quarterback is. I know that if Trey Lance was here, maybe we'd throw out, is Trey Lance the answer? Hell, could Zach Wilson? Do we now start at this point in the draft going, hey, here's where the Zach Wilson kind of talks start happening? Who knows? But if I'm the Patriots right now, I don't think I need to go out and get, unless you think Zach Wilson's the guy, I wouldn't think about quarterback. It's a reach for Barmore for the inside lineman, and I would go tight end over wide receiver, because I feel like being the Patriots, would get more out of Pitts than you could possibly get out of a Devonta Smith. And plus, if you want to add a wide receiver later, there's wide receiver depth in this class that you can go ahead and grab, and you can still get a quality pass catcher in the first round when it comes to Kyle Pitts. Then the Broncos come up. This one's easy. Caleb Farley is there, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. He is the second best corner in the draft class right now. You're the Broncos. You need cornerback. It's your biggest need. Boom, go ahead. You're basically almost taking BPA, depending on where you have Zach Wilson, where you have Kwity Page. To me, that's the next BPA. Caleb Farley. Take him, cornerback, Virginia Tech, kind of keep on moving. You hit a need, and your fan base is happy. I think you would be. Then the 49ers. This is one that's kind of interesting because basically, like I said, how the Patriot win on Monday night shook things up is originally I had Wilson from Florida State going to the Patriots. That meant Wyatt Davis, interior lineman, was getting drafted by the Vikings. That means there was not an interior lineman here. I think the next one on the board, if I'm doing this in my head, would be Trey Smith, who that would be a reach here at 15. So now that that's all thrown out the window, Wyatt Davis is here. So the 49ers could sit here and go, yeah, we could use a guard. We could use an interior lineman. But then they can also go, we also could go with a cornerback. And Campbell from Georgia is sitting here. Or, I'm sorry, not Campbell from Georgia. It'd be Sean Wade would be the next one off the board. Yet again, going through these big boards in my head without having them in front of me, doing some mental gymnastics. But yeah, Sean Wade would be the one you look at. So Wyatt Davis, Sean Wade, it's one of those, I kind of do what I did with other teams. All right, your second pick, your third pick, where are those and which one has more depth at a position at either cornerback or inside linebacker? And Later on in this draft, there are more corners than there are interior linemen. So, like for me, I looked at this and I said, okay, if I can hit on more corners later, maybe draft one in the second and the fourth, or the third and the fourth, third and the fifth, I'm going to go ahead and do that route. Even though this is a team, what do they have? I think I have the number here. Like 5? No, okay, I don't have the number. They have a ton of corners, I believe. 49er fans, correct me if I'm wrong. A ton of corners who are up at the end of the year. So, like, yeah, that's a big need for them. But like I said, this is one where it's kind of a little bit of BPA in my mind, or BPA in my mind, where Wyatt Davis, a little bit higher than Shaun Wade would be. I'm going to go ahead and protect Jimmy Garoppolo, who high ankle sprain, has injured it twice now, might need some protection if he still isn't even the quarterback. That makes sense. If he is still the quarterback for the 49ers, because there are trade rumors with that. Then we come to the Bears, and Bears fans, don't crucify. Like, I am already prepared for Bear fans to crucify me with this pick. And the reason being is this pick comes down to 2 positions: offensive line, wide receiver. And I know every Bear fan in the room take the best offensive lineman, whether that's Creed Humphrey, whether that's Dylan Radins, whether that's Trey Smith. Just take an offensive lineman, you dumb idiot. I'm not going to do that, though. For me and the Bears, at this point, I look at it and I go, okay, I mentioned it earlier with the Dolphins. A-Rob is probably gone. He's probably adios out of here. So you got a decision that you kind of have to make. What do we go with? Who are we looking at here? And to me, I look and I see more depth at the tackle position than I do the wide receiver position, where the Bears are in the second round. Even if the Bears have a guy they like in the second round, you can go ahead and trade up for him in the second round. You can hit that. So for me, I don't think A-Rob is going to be back. That's going to be a big hole to kind of go with. So that's why I go with a wide receiver that I think has fallen a little bit. He could have been picked by the Patriots, where most of the time that's where I had him going until the order kind of switched up a little bit. So I think Devonta Smith, you're sitting there. He's 14 on the board for most people. Most people he's in the middle of that first round. I go ahead and grab him, and it's like, this is something where A-Rob being lost, you have a huge gap at wide receiver. I know Anthony Miller has been doing a good job, but is he ready to take over as the number 1 wide receiver? And after that, name me your number 1 wide receiver. I don't think you can if you don't have A-Rob out there. So, like, for me, I go ahead and I take Smith, and I worry about the offensive tackle either in free agency. Yet again, free agency is going to determine this, because maybe the Bears go to free agency for the tackle position, and then they're like, duh, wide receiver, we can go here. Or they get wide receivers, and tackle will go here. But right now, yeah, I think if you lose A-Rob, that is like a hit the panic button situation. And depending on if this team clears house in the offseason, yeah, I would go wide receiver over tackle. But Bears fans, I would love to hear why you might think that is a wrong pick, because this is one I'm preparing and I wrote here in my notes. Bears fans are going to hate me. So I'm prepared to see what you guys think with that. Then you got the Browns. This one's easy for me, where right now you don't have a top end at like edge rusher and linebacker, kind of where I'm looking at this. And usually I've had edge rushers go in this position, but now I've seen someone on my big board that's kind of fallen. Dylan Moses. It's like, whoa, what's this inside linebacker? What is he doing here? So because he's fallen in my mind, he's someone that's between 10 to 13 on my big board, which this is not a huge fall, but a minor fall out of where he is. Yeah, I say this is one where, depending on who's available, I think that the Browns just take the best linebacker on the board or the best edge rusher on the board. So let's say Moses is taken. Then you're looking at like a Basham Jr. out of Wake Forest. You're looking at a Kawiti Pay, who is rising on draft boards. Maybe a Quincy Roche, depending on which ones you like out there. I'm just naming the top three that I would have. But yeah, Browns are easy to me. BPA linebacker, BPA edge rusher, whichever one is best on the board that's available. Go ahead and take them, move on. I think Dylan Moses, you're getting a guy with a position that does not have a ton of depth in this year's draft, where at least edge rusher, there's a little bit more depth within that position. Then you got the Colts, and this was one where I think this pick is, I want to say, very simple, because Phillip Rivers is up at the end of the year. Jacoby Brissett's up at the end of the year. Brissett's done. He's done with the Colts. I think he's going to walk. They're not going to re-sign him. Now, Phillip Rivers will be interesting. If they feel like this year it has gone well, we'll see how the rest of this plays out. You kind of look at it and you go, do we bring him back? And if they decide to bring him back, then maybe they don't go quarterback here. They go with offensive line, cornerback, wide receiver. Also, T.Y. Hilton's a free agent. Got to see what happens with that. But I don't think Phillip Rivers is back after this year. I think he is done. I think they're going to say, you know what, that experiment didn't work unless he wins a Super Bowl. Hey, the experiment didn't work. We're going to let you walk. We're going to go with a young guy. And I think this is where we see Zach Wilson getting drafted. Now, originally, if Trey Lance, I had Trey Lance falling before, I had Trey Lance going here. But now that Trey Lance got taken by the Falcons, it's just next quarterback up. And I mean, Zach Wilson's a guy where right now, I don't exactly know how I feel about him personally. He's having a good year. He's got a lot of hype around him. I need to die. Like, this is a check back, like, wait and see. Let me check to see where Zach Wilson is after I dive into the film and I dissect it. And I basically find things that I don't like just because I'm nitpicking these guys with the film. But yeah, Zach Wilson is the guy you go with here. Then you got the Eagles, and 19th pick, it's either cornerback or wide receiver at this point. That's what you need. Cornerback, wide receiver. I went back and forth a couple times. I'm going to go wide receiver, though. And for me, it's because, like I said, deeper with the cornerback situation. There's more cornerbacks later in this draft that the Eagles can take. And plus, Alshon and Deshaun aren't helping you out. You need a number one target for Carson Wentz to throw to. That's why I'm going to go ahead and have Bateman from Minnesota go ahead and be that pick. Then the Cardinals, they have a special pick here because there's a guy that has been falling when it comes to this draft, and that is Shaun Wade. Now, there's also a caveat I have to this pick. Let's see what happens in the offseason. Let's see what happens with Patrick Peterson. His free agency is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Let's see what happens with him. This could be one where he re-signs and then I kind of change. Okay, maybe they don't need to go at corner. But, I mean, Shaun Wade, this was a faller for me. This is one that should have been taken around where the, 49ers were picking. So, around 14, 15? And he's fallen all the way to 20. If you are the Cardinals, you are ecstatic if you get Wade at this pick with 20th overall. All right, another jump cut. That is because as I was doing this, when I got done with the Cardinals, I went right into Jacksonville, and I'm thinking that's weird because I think I'm missing something. I skipped right over the Miami Dolphins. So after the Cardinals take Wade, the Dolphins are back on the clock, and they already hit one of their needs. Is it a top 3 need? Some people may say no. Draft Network definitely says no, but they protected Tua. Now it's time to get a guy for basically them to throw to, for Tua to throw to. And for me, it's just basically the next wide receiver that is up on the board, and that is Rondale Moore from the Purdue Boilermakers, to where, if I can type this in correctly, boom, Rondale Moore from Purdue, he's the next pick. He's the one that you take for the Dolphins, because like I said earlier on, with the Texan pick, you get the guy to protect Tua. Now you get the guy for Tua to throw with, or throw to, I should say. So that one's pretty simple. Then the Jaguars, this is one where I had Kyle Pitts going here originally. Then the Patriots kind of messed things up when they didn't get Wilson. And then they went ahead and took Kyle Pitts, to where I'm almost like, okay, what do you do? Because the next two needs on this team, they could definitely go cornerback. I almost said quarterback. Cornerback. but they really need somebody on offense. They need either a tight end to catch the ball or an offensive tackle. And right now at tackle, there's not a guy there. You can go ahead and take a Dylan Radins, but that might be a little bit of a reach at 22. So for me, I kind of go, hey, you're not getting the same guy you drafted before the Patriots won and messed up this order. But you go ahead and take your tight end anyways. You go ahead. You're not getting Kyle Pitts. You're getting a Pat Freiermuth from Penn State. You get a guy who can catch the ball anyways, and boom, there you go. You give Justin Fields a nice Big Ten weapon, the leading receiver for tight ends, I want to say, at Penn State. Nittany Lion fans, correct me if I'm wrong. And you move right along. You get someone who can catch the ball at the tight end position. Freiermuth would be a great weapon for the Jaguars in this draft. Then the Raiders come up. And for me, the Raiders, it's one of those situations where Kwity Paye could be the pick here. You could go defense, but in my mind, offensive line is something you got to go with. And Creed Humphrey is here. On my big board, he's kind of fallen a little bit. He's a guy that's around 13, 14, 15. He's fallen all the way to 23. So you look at it and you go, okay, I know he's played center for his entire Oklahoma career. Either A, can you switch him to guard? Do you have someone at center that you can switch to guard and have Humphrey play center? Or is the guy that you have at center not even going to be there long term? So maybe Humphrey gets kind of moved around. And this is like the Bear pick. Raider fans, I completely understand if you hate me for making this selection and basically going with Creed Humphrey here for the Oakland Raiders, where you might say, hey, Ricky Kwity Paye is there. He's the best edge rusher. This is definitely the area for him. What are you doing? I understand. And maybe in a later mock, I make that decision. But right now, Creed Humphrey is BPA for me. And he's a need for this team. An edge rusher you can get later. There's not a lot of interior linemen, especially centers, in this draft who can step in day one. And yet again, this all depends too. The guy I was mentioning, Rodney Hudson, depends on what happens with him. Well, what is your plan with him moving forward? So like Raider Nation, I can understand if you hate me for this pick. I can understand if you're like, well, Kwity Paye is there. Why aren't you going with him? But I understand, and I am willing to accept that hate if it is there in the comment section. Speaking of Kwity Paye, though, this Titans team's like, hey, Oakland, thanks for the gift. Boom, they go ahead and take Kwity Paye. This is one where the Titans are a team that just needs a defensive lineman. They've got Clowney, they've got Daquan Jones, they've got Jack Crawford, all unrestricted free agents. Clowney's one. Are they going to want to pay him? Or are they going to let him go? In this case, hey, we got Kwity Paye. We don't need you. If you don't want to be here, they don't have to be in a situation where they overpay for Jadeveon Clowney, and they can let him walk if they don't feel like the price is right there. So like the Titans, this is easy. Kwity Paye, boom, you're done. You got your defensive line help, and you got someone who's going to be a really good edge rusher at the next level. Buccaneers are thinking the same thing. They're like, damn, we would have really liked Kwity Paye here. But we're going to go with the next best edge rusher on the board. And for me, that is Carlos Basham Jr. from the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. And this is one where it's fairly simple. The Bucs only have 2 real defensive ends on their roster. And the Ndamukong Suh, who they have on the depth chart at DE, he's up at the end of the year. So this is one where if they don't bring back Suh, they need more edge rushers on this team. Carlos Basham, he's the next one up. You fucking put him on this team. Pardon the language there, but you put him on this team and then boom, you're looking to go, moving forward, keeping going with Tom Brady. Maybe after a Super Bowl, maybe Tom Brady wins you 2 Super Bowls. Who knows? It's a long season. Then 26, we're almost here to the end, the Jets. And this is one you got your quarterback early. They could definitely go with a wide receiver. There's a Marshall Jr., Terrence Marshall Jr. from LSU. Might be a little bit of a reach here. Let's flag that one. I'm going to talk about him later. You could also go with running back. There's a lot of mocks that have Travis Etienne here. You pair Trevor Lawrence up with Etienne, got that Clemson connection, at the Green in New York. I don't go ETN here if I am the Jets. And the reason being is ETN, I don't think he makes it into the first round. I think he is a second round guy. Jets have a very early second round pick. You can take him with that second round pick. That's just how I feel. And if you miss on him, there are other running backs, Chuba Hubbard being one of them, that you can go ahead and get. So, like, I know people want to pair, they want to ship Lawrence and ETN together. Let's not do something we don't have to. Cornerback is also a need for this team. They are going to have to hit. And basically, because Terrence Marshall Jr. is going to be a bit of a reach for me at this point, I'm going cornerback if I'm the Jets. And I'm going to go with Campbell out of Georgia. Let me find him here. Tyson Campbell, cornerback out of Georgia. Get that help defensively. Get my quarterback. Get my cornerback. And be happy with my first round. If I'm the Jets, the Ravens, this is probably one of the easiest picks that I've had to make in this mock. Their number one need is safety. They are going to be in prime position, if I can find them here, to get my personal number one safety, Javon Holland, I should say, did the Chicago thing, adding an S onto his name. Maybe he becomes the new Joe Burrows and becomes Javon Holland. I go ahead and take him. Javon Holland, safety out of Oregon. He's the guy for the Ravens' number one need. You get the value there. You move right along. Maybe he can be the next Ed Reed. Knock on wood. Yet again, this desk ain't wood. Don't know why I'm knocking on it for the Baltimore Ravens. Then you got the Bills, and this one's easy. You take the best edge or you take the best corner. One of the two. That is what my notes literally have. Take the best edge or cornerback on the board. I know you may look and go, Ricky, but offensive tackle, linebacker. There's not a linebacker here that's worth taking. Dylan Radins would be, he'd be a little bit closer into the board, but I think you go defense here if you are the Bills, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and take Quincy Roche with this pick. I'm just going to go ahead and find him with the old keyboard. Quincy Roche, the defensive line mate to Gregory Rousseau in Miami. Go ahead, I take him. Both Miami guys off the board, one at the beginning, one at the end. Then with the Packers, and this is one I told you guys, let's put a bookmark on Terrence Marshall Jr. And I said earlier, this might be a little bit of a reach at 26. Let's be honest, at 29, it's still a reach. He is a guy that in many mocks, even on my big board, is a second-round talent, early second-round talent. Probably if I'm looking at it, 32, top 5 pick in the second round. But here's what I'm looking at in this one. And the Packers could be a team when we introduce trades. Maybe they trade up for a wide receiver. However, Green Bay, if you're looking for a wide receiver, don't hold your breath because the Packers probably aren't going to do that. The Packers trading up for a wide receiver is probably on the same chance of the Boston Celtics trading draft picks to move up in a draft. It just ain't going to happen. But I am on the page of this team needs to get Aaron Rodgers some GD weapons like MVS, Equiminius St. Brown. What we have seen from these wide receivers, Lazard's been injured, so that's why I'm not naming him. What we have seen from these wide receivers not named Devontae Adams is they need to catch the GD ball. And they need to add a wide receiver. Now, this team's probably going to be good because of Aaron Rodgers, that they're not in the battle for a Bateman or a Moore, or even like Waddle and Smith are out of the question, but they're not going to be in the battle for a Moore or a Bateman. So Terrence Marshall Jr. might be the best available for them, especially at this time. That's why I go with the reach. This is a team that needs to help Aaron Rodgers. That is how you win. Get him wide receiver help. Boom, you go ahead, you add this to your picks, you move right forward, and then the Chiefs are up at 30. We got 3 picks left. Chiefs up at 30, and this is one where I kind of had a little decision to make in my head because to me there's 3 positions here. Inside, basically any offensive line help, mainly on the inside of that line, wide receiver and cornerback. And for me, I'm going to go, yet again, might be seen as a little bit of a reach because this guy will probably be a second round talent in big boards, but he could sneak in there to the late first round, depending on where your need for offensive linemen, and that's Trey Smith out of Tennessee. This is one where they could have went cornerback, they could have went wide receiver, but after the Packers taking Marshall, any wide receiver is an extra reach after that. So I say no there. And I know Paulson Adebo is there, but this is a team, yet again, I looked at the later picks, and there is more depth at the cornerback position for around where the Chiefs are, that I'm like, I'm going to go and get a cornerback there. Now, if all the teams are thinking this, that's another thing. I've been saying that a lot. So if all the teams are thinking this way, there might not be enough cornerbacks to even go around, but that's just my thinking. Go ahead, get the offensive line help here. Look for a cornerback later, because that's where they are. Then the Saints, this is one where originally I had them in the Zach Wilson hunt. Zach Wilson's no longer there. This is a team, though, that could trade up for a quarterback. They were going to do it the first place for Patrick Mahomes. I think it was Patrick Mahomes is who they wanted. Chiefs beat them to the punch. So, if they like a Zach Williams, if they are a Zach Wilson, they like a Trey Lance, and Trey Lance is falling. This is a team that could trade up for that. The question being, will they? I don't have them taking a quarterback here. Kyle Trask. This is one where Matt Jones, if his stock continues to rise, check back later after I've dove more into Matt Jones's film. This is one where he could sneak in at 31 if the Saints end up picking here. But for me, this is one where cornerback needs to be in play if you're the Saints. You have 4 unrestricted free agents at the end of the year. You might not get all of them back. And for me, I'm going with the best cornerback that I have on the board. I mentioned him with the Chiefs, and that's Paulson Adebo. I go ahead and take Adebo. I keep moving. The cornerback out of Stanford's really good. And I go ahead and move on, and then I can figure out what to do with those other cornerbacks that are free agents. And then the Steelers, they round everything out. And this is one where Dylan Radins, he's the pick. This is a team that is in dire need of offensive line help. And at 32, he's my BPA on the board. He's the one that I'm going to go with, because yet again, there might be a guy that maybe slips ahead of him, but when you need offensive line help, you take the best offensive lineman there. He's that. And that kind of rounds everything up. So one more time, I'll kind of have this shown so you guys can kind of see the order. We can go through it again. Trevor Lawrence to the Jets, Justin Fields, Jaguars, Cowboys take Parsons, Giants Rousseau, Washington Chase. Then you got Sewell Chargers, Leatherwood Dolphins, Cosme Bengals, Surtain to the Panthers, Lance to the Falcons, Waddle to the Lions, Marvin Wilson, going to the Minnesota Vikings, Kyle Pitts is a Patriot, Caleb Farley is a Bronco, Wyatt Davis is a 49er, Devonta Smith is a Bear, Dylan Moses, he's a Brown, Zach Wilson goes to the Colts, Rashad Bateman, he's going to be a Philadelphia Eagle, Sean Wade's a Cardinal, Rondell Moore's a Dolphin, Jaguars go with Pat Freiermuth, Creed Humphrey a Raider, Kawiti Pay, he's a Titan, Basham Jr. goes to the Bucks, Campbell's a Jet, Holland is a Raven, Quincy Roche's a Bill, Marshall Jr. is a Packer, almost said a Panther, Trey Smith is a Chief, Paulson Adebo is a Saint, and then Dylan Radins kind of rounds everything up with the Steelers. Yet again, if you disagree with anything, you agree with anything, let me know down below what you guys think. Like I said, this is kind of our first look at the kind of NFL mock draft for the NFL season. This is just getting the thoughts on the page, getting these prospects somewhere with teams. Order's going to change. Prospects are going to rise and fall. I can't wait to get this NFL draft season started. I love the draft season. I love looking at these prospects, diving into film and everything. So I can't wait to be beginning this process with you guys. Like I said, if you disagree with anything, agree with anything, let me know what you guys think down below in that comment section. Remember, I'm going to do the whole pitch here. Join the Discord if you haven't already. down below in the description is where that link is. If you want to support us, patreon.com/MVPvids is how you do that. And if you want to catch any of the live shows, twitch.tv/MVPvids is how you do that. Thank you guys for everything that you do, liking, commenting, subscribing. And as always, have a good day, everybody.